Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a pleasure to be back and touch base on a very important subject today here at the FII, proudly in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, presenting art and culture and its contribution to local economy and to a better quality of life. My name is Yasser Al-Sagaf. I welcome everyone, and please welcome my esteemed guests in this panel today. His Excellency Hamid Faiz, the Vice Minister of Culture, Saudi Arabia. Also, Her Excellency Irina Bokova, former Director General of UNESCO. And joining us, Mr. Charles Stewart, the CEO of Sotheby's. And I would like to start this panel with His Excellency Hamid Faiz. Please, Mr. Hamid, give us an update on what you have been doing at the Ministry of Culture.
First of all, thank you for inviting me today. And it's both a privilege and an honor to be amongst such a great group of distinguished panelists. A lot has happened since we last met last year. The ministry's journey has reached a very important juncture where we moved from startup to stand-up. And I'll explain what this is. So, in addition to delivering on the National Cultural Strategy over the last few years, 2021 marked a massive change towards delivering on the 11 Cultural Commission's strategies, which collectively will help us create more than 100,000 jobs over the next few years and grow our contribution to the economy to 3% of GDP by 2030. You can ask, how are we going to do this? Well, through a portfolio of 500+ initiatives across the ecosystem that spans across supply, demand, and enablement, which includes education, training, funding, technology, and infrastructure, is one component. The second component is through increasing the scale of our investment and pace of our investment and funding activity to an unprecedented level. So this was cultivated by finalizing the National Culture Investment Strategy, which had identified 2.5 billion riyals worth of opportunities over the next few years. And more tangibly is the transition of the Culture Development Fund from strategy and design to execution. So I'll give you an example. Only this year, 180 million riyals worth of grant programs, which is the full amount, had been committed, with 1 billion riyal in demand in the pipeline that we're looking into as we speak. We launched an equity investment program and a lending investment program to cultural practitioners. And by the end of the year, we'll be launching a film production fund as well with partners in the private sector. These activities had helped the ecosystem to come up with programs such as incubators, accelerators, residencies, and scholarships, cultural scholarships that are designed to support and enable the creatives and the practitioners in the market to build their businesses based on solid foundations. But again, I think startup to stand up, it's important that we offer as well more numbers. This year alone, we would have delivered more than 2,800 events, cultural events. 2,700 architectural heritage sites would have been registered with the National Archive. We've accepted more than 700 students in our cultural scholarship program. And we announced the 40% rebate program under the Film Commission, which by itself is allowing now and enabling more than 40 projects taking place in and around the country. Plus, we had our first, and you were there, Yasser, I think, the first International Film Festival last year in Jeddah. And our second one is coming in December, and everyone here is absolutely invited, so I think you're going to enjoy it. But let's think about forward-looking in the next phase of that journey. So we plan for the next few years to open 28 museums, and that's only Ministry of Culture and its ecosystem. We plan to build 153 public libraries, and will be absolutely ready and equipped by the end of 2030 to host more than 100 global standard film projects to be filmed in Saudi Arabia and across Saudi Arabia, actually. And maybe I'll finalize with, our journey does not stop. It's dynamic. So in a past life, when I was a banker, I remember once hearing Mohammed Amir Al-Aryan, the famous economist, talk about what are the attributes to successful organizations, good performing organizations over the long term. And he mentioned three things: resilience, agility, and optionality. And I truly believe in that. And on that basis, His Highness Prince Badr bin Abdullah bin Farhan Al Saud, the Minister of Culture, had directed myself and my colleagues at the ministry to look at a refresh of the strategy to ensure that we map the top-down approach we had in our original strategy back in 2019 with a bottom-up reality on the ground, taking into account the changes that took place, such as COVID at the global spectrum, and the opening up of the tourism sector, more of a local development. That refresh has solidified our ambitious goals and targets and had helped us redesign our execution plans to ensure effective delivery. In a nutshell, startup to stand up, we'll leave no potential unrealized and no stone unturned. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing with the empowerment. Of course, with the empowerment and the support of our leadership, you have been doing a great job. It is very much highlighted in our society, and thank you so much for all the work you have been doing, Your Excellency. Jumping on to Her Excellency Irina Bokova, let me ask you this. What is the need for better integration of art education and humanities in all levels of education systems?
What a delight to be here and to listen to you, Mr. Deputy Minister, because Saudi Arabia is such a vibrant cultural, I would say, hub nowadays. Everything is happening, and you give a lot of opportunities to young people, to creators. And I think that listening to today's debate about growth, about social inclusion, about inequalities, I think that the creative sector, the creative economy, is really vital in this process. I just come from Alula. I was last week in Alula, where one of the, I would say, the heart of the Vision 2030 of Saudi Arabia is about the protection of heritage. The first World Heritage Site of Saudi Arabia, inscribed in 2008. Now Saudi Arabia has 6. With intangible heritage also, the pride of the local people, the crafts, the skills that they have. Developing also its biodiversity, linking it to the energy transition, to climate. It's an amazing example, I think, of a commitment to create a different society. And I was there 2008 for the first time, and I can say that it's a tremendous change. A tremendous change because it gives indeed opportunity for the Saudi people to move in modernity while protecting and preserving its heritage and its identity. And thinking about, once again, the creative economies, I believe that the cultural, creative sector all over in the world plays a hugely important role. We should not forget that it's the fastest growing industry, the fastest growing industry in the world. It is 3% of the global GDP. In some cases, in some countries, it may reach even to 10%. It's a huge engine of development for the young people globally also, where we know that the jobs the creative sector, the creative economy creates nowadays, it's more than 30 million. It's more than the automobile industry in the world. And it is the vast majority are young people between the age of 18 and 25. So you can imagine what an important sector in a country it is. It is about creation of jobs, jobs that are innovative, that are modern, that are green very often, jobs that cannot be exported in some other country because the industry moves. It is very much anchored into the local economy, the local communities. And it is also part of this important, in my view, factor, and it is about identities. It is about knowing your own culture and your own history. And I move now to your question, because you did ask about humanities and art. I'm a deep believer that humanities was sidelined for a long time from education systems. We have to go back. We have to go to learn about philosophy, about history. We have to know about art, because art education is about innovation. Art education is very much linked to technology nowadays. And it is not by chance that one of the best software producers and have studied art come from the art field. So art is important, but the other side also of art education is that many experts, a lot of research shows that when art education is introduced in schools, children excel more. They have better gains in mathematics, in physics, in all the other subjects. It really opens their mind to something else. Because I speak about heritage, I speak also about creativity. I think that studying history, it gives you a contingency. You know that there were other societies. Anthropology gives you the knowledge that somebody else, somewhere else, there are also people that are having their own culture. But it's important to know your own culture because you have a sense of belonging. And this is where history and art and in humanities in school. But you should know also the history of the others. And when you know it and the culture of the others, it gives you a sense of sharing. And I think this is very important nowadays when we speak about it. And this is where Saudi Arabia gives an incredible example in this. I would like to congratulate you again.
Yes, very proud of that. So you are saying it creates industries and it drives economic growth and social inclusion as well.
Yes.
Amazing. Moving to Mr. Charles Stewart, welcome to Saudi Arabia, first of all.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, how do new modes of culture and art driven by technology and other trends transform the art economy and culture from local to global?
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The first thing I'd like to point out when considering that question is the enormous explosion in access and interest in art. With digitization, which has certainly increased over the last few years in the pandemic, we've seen just an enormous growth in audience and interest in art and culture. At Sotheby's, we're a 278-year-old company. We sell art and luxury objects across 70 categories and all around the world, and we have never seen so much growth in audience as we have in the last few years. A small example of it is prior to the pandemic, at our largest art auctions of the year, you were limited to 400 people in the room. Now that we stream them and you can watch them on a screen, even the size of the one in this room, we have over 1 million views on average for those events. So it's a quantum change. Secondly, I think that technology is affecting the art market and the art world in other ways. Digital creators, it's natural that young people will include technology as part of the creation process going forward. And who would have thought that in 2021, art would be the first real-world use case for blockchain and cryptocurrency when NFTs burst onto the scene? To me, that highlights how art convenes and captures our collective imagination. And there's a lot more to come there going forward. And lastly, I would just say that technology is changing the art market in many other ways. It changes how creators are compensated for the art they create and ultimately distribute and sell it. For collectors, it has the potential to change how you discover, how you trade, how you authenticate and understand provenance, and even insure your art going forward. So I think we're in a moment of profound change through all of these modalities.
Okay, in a nutshell, very quick, Mr. Charles.
Yes.
Culture and art is so important to society.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Of course I agree. It's amazing to be speaking about art and culture at today's conference, which is focused on investment. And art is the creative expression of who we are. It binds us across our past, our present, our future, across boundaries, cultural, geographic, etc. I just want to comment that seeing how important a pillar art and culture represent in the 2030 vision here in Saudi Arabia is incredibly impressive. Because to me, not only do you need the infrastructure, the policy, the education, but ultimately the art and the culture will bring color and life and will be an incredibly important economic driver. It will be a magnet for the 100 million visits that are targeted for the kingdom. And as His Excellency mentioned, 28 new museums. We see museums around the world, new museums that are on average sometimes attracting 1 million or more visitors a year. Imagine 28 in a single country. It's extraordinary, the vision, and I'm excited to be here and be a part of it. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Mr. Charles. We have 4 minutes. I want to end this session, but I would like to ask for 2 more minutes because I want to ask Her Excellency, investing in art and culture globally, how does that affect society?
Well, I think that investing in art and culture makes societies more cohesive. As I said, we are speaking about sustainable development, sometimes the crisis in the world. We speak about responses to climate, how to protect biodiversity. We speak about sustainable urban development. And all of these issues, at the end of the day, bog down also to some extent to culture. Just to take urban development and sustainable urban development, where in the goal of the United Nations Agenda 2030 for sustainable development, the need to protect heritage is included. But culture is all over, of course, this agenda. But can you imagine a city without culture, without common spaces, without exchanges? It is just the infrastructure, the buildings. What gives the soul of the city is exactly the culture, is communities thriving together, living together. I think preserving, of course, our cultural heritage, and it's a good moment to speak about that because just in 20 days we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the World Heritage Convention. One of the most extraordinary ideas of humanity from the 20th century, that all of this unites us. We marvel sites from another culture, from another religion. They're all in the list. It's an open book of diversity. We all respect each other. Without doing this, just to have beautiful buildings or architecture without soul, I don't think that we will sustain this.
Amazing. I will end this session with a final word from the Saudi Ministry of Culture. Your Excellency, how can investing in culture make an impact socially and economically? Maybe you can touch base on the local.
Yeah, I'm going to localize the answer, if you allow me, Your Excellency. But culture in the rest of the world and in Saudi Arabia, in my view, enhances people's lives through 3 key values. 1, it enriches the quality of life. 2, it's a driver for economic prosperity and demand. And 3, it connects people around the world while instilling a notion of pride that forces a dynamic global, forces the basis of a dynamic global dialogue across the globe. Research by University of Pennsylvania in the US shows a very high degree of correlation between culture offering and consumption with healthier people, better education, and lower crime rates. But let me go back to the values. I think these values are perfectly mirrored against the country's Vision 2030. And I'm going to take it down to earth and give you an example that's tangible and real and live. So the Minister of Culture announced this year that it's going to be the year of Saudi coffee. Saudi Arabia is well known for its coffee, which is a national symbol of culture and hospitality. But we face little farming investment and saturated demand. What did we do about this? Implemented a 12-month program that at its core is designed to support local communities and raise awareness of what Saudi coffee is. By the end of that program, we're going to have 2 components hopefully achieved. One, at the social cultural side, which is more people, Saudis, residents, visitors, would know more about Saudi coffee, know how it's grown, the diverse element of it, how it's served, and actually take pride of it. On the other side, which is the economic side, and going back to your question, that they are interconnected, we are currently supporting local farmers to grow their business, number one. Number two, we're identifying new job opportunities across the value chain of upstream, downstream, and research and development. And finally, unlocking investment opportunities through exporting and marketing Saudi coffee to the rest of the world. And again, there's Saudi coffee around
All over the
here,
place.
everywhere, and soon Saudi coffee around the world. I'll close with simply saying that we have so many examples that are similar. Book fair, Riyadh International Book Fair, we welcomed more than 1 million people in Riyadh earlier this month. In doing so, we supported small businesses as well as the publishing sector. And finally, we took our top Saudi 100 fashion designers, brands, globally, and we took them to New York, Milan, and Paris. Want to show awareness and promote these brands, but also to help them in their businesses economically.
Amazing.
I'll close with, from startup to stand up, we have high potential, great, huge ambitions, and we're not stopping here.
Could
Great.
I just remind
They're telling
the tradition of Saudi coffee is on the UNESCO list of intangible heritage.
Amazing.
In
All right.
recognition.
There we go. We have it. Thank you, Your Excellencies, Mr. Charles, for your time and all the valuable information given in this session. A final note, culture and art contributes to a better quality of life. It just makes me proud as a Saudi citizen while I see my great country conserving historical sites, opening new venues, building art facilities, public libraries, and much more, expanding and supporting the film industry. As you know, I am part of that as well, integrating art, music, and history into education. And we do believe that we have much, much more in Saudi Arabia. It was a pleasure. Thank you all for your time. Stay well. It was Yasser Sagaf. Thank you so much.